Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street. I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. Today I am solo and I'm talking about Evergreen apparel product lines. So if you are a small business owner or if you're an entrepreneur, you might hear the word evergreen as a product that kind of exists in your library that you can sell time and time again. It kind of stays green, just like an evergreen tree would, right? Like it doesn't lose its leaves. You can always count on it to be green. It is something that you can always count on being able to sell, something that you can always count on being relevant to your market. And so when we talk about that in the apparel industry, we're typically talking about the basics that you might sell out of your company. This might be some of your first viable products that you really wanted to bring to market when you started your brand. You know, if you started slow with just a couple of products, you probably started with the 1, 2, or 3 that made the most sense to your ideal customer. And so these tend to become your evergreen apparel pieces that you want to keep in your line. You can, of course, always add them in new colors so that you kind of get newness and trend in color when you go from season to season or from year to year. But we also really recommend as product managers that we hold those evergreen apparel product pieces in our line as basic colors as well. So black is usually a number one seller in most apparel lines. And so if you have an evergreen product that your customers love, it stands for your brand, it's perfect for your ideal customer, we definitely always recommend that you carry it in black. And then whatever your core brand colors might be. So a lot of times we see this as a navy blue or an olive green. Some people go with like white, or when I was working at Specialized, one of our core colors was red because of the big red S. And so everything that we did, if we needed a core color in it, we also added our brand's red color. And so as you grow as an apparel brand and you start thinking about new products you want to add to your line, we tend to see them then come in as seasonal pieces. So maybe it's a piece that comes in just for spring. And we definitely want to sell this new spring type piece. We wanted to add it to the collection. We want it to supplement and help to complement our evergreen apparel pieces. And maybe those come in brighter colors or they come in prints. And those are the items that you would expect to see come in and then either phase out at the end of your season or you expect to sell through by the end of that season. And so those are kind of your seasonal pieces that you want to have in the line. What's really important to remember that as you add seasonal pieces, or maybe you do a collaboration with another brand, or maybe you do a special makeup or something for an event, as you add those pieces that are meant to come in and out of your line, you always have that like really solid bottom of your pyramid as your line plan grows. And so that bottom of your pyramid really becomes your basics. It becomes your evergreen pieces. If you hold evergreen pieces in your line like this, the brand loyalty that you gain from your customers is something really, really special because so few brands do this practice. Unfortunately, we see so much turnover in product lines from way too many brands. And I'll get into that here in a second, a couple of examples that I've seen, good ones and bad ones. But what we tend to see is the brands who hold evergreen apparel product, and you know that you can go to them year over year and get the same favorite jeans, favorite leggings, favorite t-shirt that you have in your closet. And so when it's ready for a new one, you know exactly where to go, exactly who to buy it from, exactly what size you need, exactly how the fabric is going to feel on your body. You want to create that brand loyalty so that you get repeat customers over and over. At the same time, those evergreen apparel products are relieving your team of extra work, right? You've developed this maybe 2 or 3 years ago. You know all of the construction details of it. Your manufacturer is super comfortable and super aware of all of the details of that piece. And so it can just roll. You can just continue to create purchase orders for it. Sometimes you will work with a great manufacturer who will say every 2 years, we want to make sure that you're checking the pre-production samples and you're checking the top of production samples. And so they'll send you new samples a couple of years in between just to make sure that they're not getting stale on the process of making that garment. And that is actually a really great practice if you have an evergreen apparel line. Letting your manufacturer just run for 5, 7, 10 years without doing checks in between can be risky. So if you decide to implement a great evergreen apparel product line, this is something that you can consider. Even if your manufacturer isn't suggesting it, you can suggest it to them. But all of a sudden it takes a lot of work off, right? That core of your business, the items that are essentially keeping the lights on in your building, paying everyone's salaries, making sure that the revenue stream is steady, they become, you don't really even need to think about them. Yes, if you are working in a product line management system, or if you have season to season or year to year tech packs that you maintain within your team, you want to make sure that you're carrying those styles over into every single season. And that's important that you have updated tech packs and you have updated information. So as your operations team goes to send those purchase orders in, it's all in one place. It's really easy for them to find. If they're pulling line plans from your system, it's all there. So yes, there is a little bit of work in being able to copy and paste a tech pack from one season to the next. But if you're not adding new colors and maybe you're just holding that piece in all of your basics and you're not even doing seasonal colorways, it becomes really easy. Again, it's just a copy and paste. This is in our line yet again this year because it's an evergreen piece and it continues to perform for us. Now, we do see in the industry, of course, there will come a time when evergreen products see an end of life. And it can be difficult to plan an end of life for an evergreen apparel product piece. I 100% will admit that. When you're putting trend pieces, seasonal pieces, SMUs, which is special makeups, or collaboration pieces, or anything like that into your line, you should be planning a launch date. So this is the date that I expect to launch it to my customers. At the same time, I really recommend that you plan its end of life date. So if you're planning to launch something in spring 24, you don't necessarily want those colors to be going and still being in your line in spring 25 because those colors might no longer be relevant to the market. Let's say, for example, you're using Pantone's color of the year for 2024. Well, there's going to be a new one for 2025. So you want to make sure that your team, your sales team, your operations team, your marketing team is also planning for that end of life date. So if you launch in February of 2024, you should expect to see that piece actually start to phase out around August when fall 24 starts to happen. And that's when you want to start hitting clearance and you want to start getting that inventory out. You want to start selling through it. That's what I really recommend for seasonal items. Like I was saying, it can be hard to plan an end of life date for an evergreen product because it's difficult to tell when your customers are essentially going to become tired of it. And so watching the numbers of an evergreen apparel piece in your line can be really important. Kind of assigning someone, whether that's your product manager. Rarely do development managers actually manage this type of data, but maybe you have a supply chain leader or you have a director of your apparel team who can really start making sure that they're monitoring these numbers. You want to start to pay attention to dips in sales for your evergreen apparel pieces to recognize when maybe the customer is starting to get sick of it, or maybe it's no longer their favorite piece. Maybe you've brought a new seasonal piece in that is actually a little bit better quality. Maybe the fit is a little bit better. Maybe you found a fabric that the customer is liking better, and you're finding that that seasonal piece could actually replace your evergreen piece and it could become evergreen. So those are definitely some things that you want to monitor, you want to pay attention of. And then once you start to recognize that dip in sales for your evergreen apparel pieces, what you want to then start to consider is how much inventory of that do you have on your books? Maybe you've just placed a purchase order for an entire new run to come in, or maybe your warehouse has several units left, or maybe hundreds of units left. And so how do you then plan to exit that inventory to make sure that you deplete it by time you hit your desired end of life date? And so there is definitely some planning that goes into work there. If you have a merchandising team at your brand, you can definitely work with them to figure out all of those different dates and how all of those different numbers end up playing together. So what is an example of a great evergreen apparel product brand? When I was at Abercrombie and Fitch, there were just some staples that we had in the line. A lot of their denim at the time was very standard. You could always walk into an Abercrombie store and know exactly what fit you were reaching for. You would know how it was going to feel on your body. You would know how the denim was going to react. You would know what kind of pocket configuration it had. You would know what kind of washes they were selling. And so denim across the board, really, in a lot of different brands, tends to be a great evergreen item, because if you find an amazing pair of denim that you love, a lot of the time you want to be able to buy a couple pairs of it, or be able to go back to the store over and over again when you need to buy new pairs of that denim. Denim does wear down. We've all seen holes in unsightly places on our denim when our thighs rub together, or when we've, hit something with our knee. And so we end up seeing those threadbares that actually happen in real life, even if they weren't on the denim in the first place, which we've seen a lot of in the industry. It comes that way. But that is definitely a product that is a great example of evergreen. And that is also a great example of how a lot of those denim brands create customer loyalty. Because if their customer can find their favorite pair of jeans at their store, they know that they can bring that person back over and over again by continuing to offer that piece to them. So I've seen that work really well when I was at Abercrombie. I've also seen that work really well when I was at Fossil. We had some pieces in the line that were staples, from the time that I was there to the time that I left. We maybe put new prints on them, or we maybe added them in new colors. But you could always go to them for certain tank tops or for certain fits on a t-shirt. And it was just the way that it was. And so when Fossil had their apparel line and I worked on it, that was one of the greatest parts of the development process, because it was easy to just add new graphics or add new prints, whatever kind of went with the seasonal line that we were doing. But there was no new fit work to do. Our team didn't have to measure all of the samples, go into multiple rounds of fittings, do all of this extra work on the patterns, communicate with the factory about changes. All of that work came off of our plate when it came to those evergreen pieces. And so you can imagine how having evergreen pieces in your line and really emphasizing them as the core of your business can also really help to amplify the happiness of your team, reduce team burnout, reduce team stress, and just help your team to understand, we're just going to work on new stuff over here. We're always going to have these. And so you don't always have to be developing a brand new line every single season. Unfortunately, I have seen a couple of different poor examples of evergreen product lines, and this tends to happen a lot in the performance apparel space. And I'm not really sure why, if I'm being really honest, because to me, if I had a run tight or a yoga tight or a chamois cycling bib that I loved and I only ever wore this piece, if every time I get on my bike, I want to wear Pearl Izumi's Quest bib short. That is the one. I love this chamois. It makes my sit bones feel great when I'm on my saddle. It keeps me comfortable. I don't even think about being on my saddle when I'm on my ride. If that is my piece, I want to be able to find it year after year after year. And unfortunately, I think in the performance apparel space, there is a lot of reinvention constantly going on, where teams will kind of come in and want to revamp entire lines. And so instead of offering their customer year after year after year the same consistent product that they can come back to, we see full reinventions. We see dropping of entire collections of product. I'm talking about hundreds of items at a time. we're just going to walk away from these hundreds of pieces that we've been offering to our customers, that we've been marketing, that we've been working to sell, that we developed. We're going to walk away from them and we're just going to totally start from scratch. And these are the teams that I see turn over so fast and so often because there's so much burnout going on. When you tear down collections and rebuild from scratch every other year, I will tell you that at one of the cycling brands I was working at, we were doing this every other year. And it was our road cycling collection, then our mountain bike cycling collection. And we were tearing down the entire collection of road pieces that we had done every other year. And then in between, we were tearing down the entire mountain bike collection every other year. And so if you were a cyclist who came to the brand and really liked a mountain bike short that we had come out with the previous year, and it was 2 years later, you wanted to go find another piece because maybe you crashed. And so you have a hole in your favorite pair. We didn't have it anymore. It was gone. We had replaced it with something else because maybe we hired a new designer or maybe we had a new leader on the team and they really wanted to make their stamp on our collection. And instead of being willing to adopt what was already sitting in the line, they wanted to make everything theirs and they wanted to make everything new and everything speak to exactly what they felt needed to be in the line. And so for some reason, I've seen that a lot in the performance apparel space. And it's something that I'm really trying to educate in this area, that if those brands can really stop doing that, not only will they see the turnover of their team decrease, they will also see their revenue grow because those consistent customers will come back year over year to find those pieces, especially as they start to ride in them or run in them or do yoga in them and understand that they become some of their favorites. Outside of the apparel space in the entrepreneurial world, you might hear about evergreen courses or evergreen product offerings in a way that allow other companies to then also leverage something that they create once. They can put the marketing plan to it once, and then it's basically rinse and repeat. And so this is essentially the same concept for the apparel industry. It's something I really want to encourage more of. If you are out there creating an apparel line and you're trying to create new product over and over and over again, and you're letting go of product before it even catches the customer to a point where they love it, give them time. You need to give your customer some time to realize that they love your pieces and come back to you over and over again. That customer loyalty that you can build with high quality garments, with well-fitting garments, is really important to your brand to be able to create that bottom of your pyramid that you can then stack other pieces on top of over time. I know this is a short episode today, but thus I just wanted to get my thoughts out on evergreen apparel lines. I've had several people really reach out to me about this topic because it's not known a lot in our industry for some reason. And it's something that we can really leverage to amplify our businesses, to grow our profits, and to help make steady revenue from year to year. So instead of guessing and hoping that your revenue hits a certain number, you can know at least a portion of it is steady and you can expect it. If you have any questions for me about evergreen apparel product lines, please be sure to put a comment below. I'm really excited to hear from you and I'd love to hear what you think of this episode. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, unmarkstreet.com, where I do weekly trainings through my video channel, a monthly newsletter, and offer so many resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand.